Hi. Yeah, welcome. In the previous video, we looked at the overall structure of the system and how everything connects. All right. In this video, we are going to focus now on the chart of accounts, which is the foundation of the entire system. Because before you can record transactions properly and correctly, you need to understand how accounts are structured and used. All right. So, what is the chart of accounts? Now, the chart of accounts is simply a list of all the accounts used in a system. These accounts represent everything in your farm business, such as your assets, so what you own, your liabilities, what you owe, your income, your expenses. Every transaction that you record will use one or more of these accounts. Now, all accounts fall into 5 main categories. We've got the assets category, we've got the liabilities, we've got the equity, we've got the revenue, we've got the expenses as well. So all these are different categories into which all these accounts are falling. All right. Now, let me just quickly, briefly explain each one. Now, when we talk about assets, so assets are the things that the business owns, like the bank, like the livestock, like the inventory. So those are assets. And you will see that for simplicity's sake, all the asset accounts starts with AST for asset. So asset BNK is a bank, and this is the main account. All right. AST, asset, cash, asset, receivable, and so accounts receivable. So for simplicity's sake, the name starts, or the code starts with the identification of what category of an account it is. Liabilities, LIA, equity, EQU, revenue, REV, and such and such and such. All right. So those are what assets are, the things that the business owns. Now, liabilities on the other side are what the business owes, things like loans or accounts payable. All right. So those are the liabilities. Now, the equity represents the owner's stake in the business. All right. Revenue is money coming into the business from sales, directly from sales. All right. So that is the revenue. And then, of course, the expenses are costs which are incurred in the running of the farm or in the running of the business, like things like feed, labor, fuel, and such and such and such. All right. Now, let's quickly look at the account codes. Now, you will see that, as we said, each account has a unique account code. And this is the code that you are going to use in the recording of your transactions, so that the system can know which account to refer to. So, for example, the AST-BNK main, so as we said, that's the asset, it's the bank, and it's the main bank. All right. You go and you look at EXP, prod, OTH. So that is an expense, and it is a production. It's a production expense under other cost. All right. So Those codes are what will help the system to identify the account, to categorize the transactions in the different books, as well as generate accurate and updated reports. So it is needless to say then that the chart of accounts is a very, very important aspect of the business system. So it is important to use when you add your own codes to use consistent and meaningful codes so that it becomes easier for you to identify which is which. So as we said in the overview, that the grayed out areas consist accounts that are already preloaded. So these are taken from different segments of the farming industry and populated for you already. All right. But you are free to add your own, because as far as the grayed out ones are concerned, you cannot delete them, you cannot edit them, they have been locked. So, but you can add your own here for as long as you keep them within the bordered cells. And also very, very important that when you add a new account, make sure that all this information are added in as well. You know, the account name that is associated with that account, the category, if it is an expense, the expense group, whether it should be linked to any particular enterprise, or as well as the type of transaction, and then the normal balance, and that is now whether that account should be debited or whether it should be credited. Very, very important, because that will determine how that account will behave, or how the system will behave when that account is selected. All right. So and when you look at that, that is how you see, that is where you see that each account in the system has these several key fields. All right. So the account code, the account name, the category, and the expense group for expenses. So and the category is very, very important, because it is going to determine how the account will behave in the reports. For example, assets are going to appear in the balance sheet automatically. Expenses are going to appear in the income statement automatically. And then also the expense group helps to organize the expenses into meaningful sections. All right, like production cost, like direct cost, like livestock cost, and stuff. All right. Now, another important aspect is the enterprise tracking. So in addition to accounts, the system also uses enterprise codes. All right. So these represent different farm activities, such as cattle, goats, sheep, and let me just let's quickly look at and see if we can. Okay, so this is the enterprise list. So these are the enterprise codes. So what we are saying then is, this will allow you to track performance by enterprise as well. So it will allow you to track performance by enterprise, and for example, you can see how profitable goats are compared to cattle, or to track cost specific to charcoal production. You know, it makes your tracking more specific. All right. Now, let's quickly look at how accounts affect our reports. Now, the chart of accounts directly controls how your reports look like. All right. For example, if you post a transaction to an expense account, it is going to appear in the income statement as a cost automatically. If you post to an asset account, it will appear in a balance sheet automatically. So you'll see that choosing the correct account is critical. All right? Choosing the correct account is really critical. Now, let's say, for example, if you buy feed, you are going to use an expense account. Let's go to the expenses. You are going to use an expense account like feed. All right? So this is the expense account name. Now, if you are going to buy livestock, you are going to use an asset account like goats. All right? So you'll see now we have divided goats into breeding stock as well as non-breeding stock. So, and each one has got its own account code. And if you sell animals, as an example, then you are going to look at the revenue. You are going to look at a revenue account. Let's say, for example, like goat sales, and it has its own revenue account code. So the account you choose will determine how the transaction is reported. Now, there are some common mistakes that you need to be careful to avoid when you are recording transactions. And the first one is using the wrong category. All right? When you are setting up your account, do not use the wrong category because it is going to affect the placement of that account in your books. Also, avoid creating duplicate accounts. Also, not using consistent account codes. Consistent means, let's say, for example, if it is an asset, it will be consistent if you add AST in the front before you put the dash. Is that a dash? Before you put it in. So it is important. It is important for you to keep your account codes consistent, and also avoid the mistake of posting expenses to asset. When you are creating an expense account, don't put it as an asset or vice versa, because these mistakes can cause your reports to be incorrect. All right? So to keep your system clean and accurate, keep your chart of accounts simple. Use clear and consistent naming if you need to add your own. Group similar expenses together, and also only create new accounts when necessary. Otherwise, use the ones that are already in the system, that are already pre-populated for you. Because a well-structured chart of accounts makes everything easier, makes the flow, makes the recording and the placement of the transactions very, very much easier. All right? So, now that you understand how accounts are structured, the next step is to start using them to record transactions. So, in the next video, we will go into the transactions register and see how to apply this in practice. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next session.